Hey, ghoul friends. It's me, Adrian or Ayden. Either way, you are still listening to Susto, the podcast of ooky, spooky, scary stories. Today, I have a real treat for you all. And to be honest, it was a treat for me too, because we have a guest on today's show. And this guest is one of my best friends, one of my childhood friends. Yes, we grew up together, sharing scary stories. This is one of the people that my love for the spooky developed with. And we'll talk about this a little bit later when she's on, but it's kind of come full circle because my friend, her name is Alejandra Sanchez. She is actually a professional healer and psychic and medium. And like when I say professional, I mean professional. She is the real deal. And I'm going to be mentioning it a bunch of times later too, but I will be tagging her information on the Susto Instagram at Susto Podcast. So make sure that you check that out so that you can find her information and that you can book her. And yeah, I'm really excited for y'all to listen to this because it's very interesting. It's got everything, it's scary, it's creepy, it's informational, it's educational. So I hope that you all enjoy listening to this as much as we enjoyed making it. Just to give you a heads up, this is one of my best friends, one of my good Judies. So we're very comfortable with each other and we're very comfortable talking to each other the way that we talk to each other. So there's some colorful language. I know that a few of you have some kiddos listening to the show. So I just want to preface it with that there is some pretty, colorful language, we'll call it. We cuss, okay? We cuss. We're adults and we cuss. I'm sorry. I don't know that that's a habit I can break, but I'm just letting you know in case you have a little one in the car and you don't want them to hear those words, those dirty words. But anyway, aside from that, another heads up is that this is the first episode that I do a phone interview with. So the guests that I've had on previously, they were in person. Alejandra does not live in the RGV, so we had to do a voice recording. So if there are any of you out there that are like audio geniuses and you have tips on how to make audio from Google Voice sound impeccable on a podcast, please share that information with me. And you know how you can do that? You can do that by sending an email to sustopodcast@gmail.com or the Instagram, but an email might be easier for that. Either way, we're going to jump into it. Of course, I have to tell you, if you have a story you want me to share on this show, you can do so by leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. And in the review, leave your story. You can also just do that if you want to leave me some love and tell me that I'm doing great. And if you don't have Apple Podcasts, you can do any of that by sending an email to sustopodcast@gmail.com. And also, another thing, you don't have to share a story, if you have like a scary video or a picture or an audio recording or something, send that to me. I would love to see and hear any of that stuff. And I'll put it on the Instagram too, with your permission. I would love to do that. So again, I hope you all enjoy the show and I will talk to you after. Alejandra. Oh my God. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome. It's me.
It's me, Alejandra. So, as I was trying to say before, this is the first phone interview that I've done for the show. So it's really it's going to be interesting too, because usually I get to go off of people's like their body language or like their facial cues. So we'll see. Hopefully we're not just like yelling at each other the whole time, which is how we have almost every other conversation.
True.
So for just really quick, for people that don't know you, Alejandra is one of my best friends. We grew up together. You're one of the first people I came out to, and then you were like, honey, no shit.
I'm psychic.
And then,
but actually,
and that's what I was thinking about that earlier, is that I remember when we would hang out growing up and that we were always telling scary stories. And it was usually your mom telling us things. And then it turned into like you started having your own experiences. And it's so interesting how like that has come full circle to, like in terms or in regards to what your profession is now.
Correct. Yeah. It's kind of mind blowing. Like sometimes I'm just like, oh, so I'm not crazy. I thought I was crazy.
No. Well, why don't you tell everyone what you do?
Yeah. So for those of you who may or may not know me, my name is Alejandra Sanchez, and I am a professional psychic, intuitive energy healer, tarot reader, medium, animal medium, and many other things involving the occult and mysticism. I have many practices. I study a lot. So if you guys don't follow me or don't know me yet, go by La Bruja Feminista as my business page on both Instagram and Facebook.
And I'll make sure to tag you too on the description of the show, and I'll tag you on the Susto Instagram. So again, if you're not following the Instagram, make sure that you follow that at Susto Podcast on Instagram, and that's how you can find Alejandra's information. I'll link it on there for you all. So I understand that you have some stories to share with us today.
I do. Some really, really good stories for all the muggles, normies out there.
All the normies.
All the normies.
I love that.
Yeah, no, and thank you so much. This is so exciting. I'll definitely just go into the story and kind of like the way you do all your other episodes, which I love, is you kind of debrief, and I'll definitely do that. All right, y'all. So this is a story that this is real life, right? Warning, real life. So this is a story about my interactions with some lower vibrational entities, which, like I mentioned, hooty, jinns or demons, or wherever the culture or background that you come from. And this had to do with a situation with an ex of mine. And I love telling this story to people, especially for non-believers or people who are still curious, is because my ex actually got to experience this demon and low vibrational entity. And that didn't make me happy necessarily, but it did make me, understand that there are different ways that even normal people or normies without the gift of clairvoyances can experience the different dimensions and entities. So I'll get started. So as per usual, I'm not going to shit on my ex, but I'm going to shit on my ex a little bit.
Do it.
We're going to do it. We're going to go there. So my ex was he was a wonderful person. I'm not going to actually shit on them. Light, love, and compassion. But they did have a lot of severe PTSD, complex PTSD, but #same. But they were very much involved in toxic masculinity, and they hid that a lot. So one big part of their demon was they were very, they wore a mask. Like many men, they want to reel in that strong, powerful woman, and then they're just kidding, how can I break her? So at the point after months of dating this ex of mine, there was a situation where things were starting to get very toxic, and a lot of my mental health, I'm not going to blame everything on them as well. A lot of my mental health issues were starting to arise. It was a big catcher moment, the word we used to say where, spirit comes in and breaks you, so you shift consciousness. And so I was arriving at that time, and there was one day where we were, I think, arguing or something wasn't going too well. There was a lot of tension. He tended to gaslight, like most abusers do. So it's being gaslighted, and in instances like that where there's abuse, that's where your low vibration entities are out and about. So I'm sitting on his bed, right, in a spooky, dark night, and I'm sitting there, and I think we just actually finished having sex, which makes a lot more sense now that I'm studying sex demons. And I'm sitting there, and I get up, and he goes to the bathroom, and everything's dark in the house, and he leaves his door open, right? And just another prefix, this is before I've decided that I'm full-blown psychic, I own my powers. So at the time, I was still very unaware and scared, of all of these experiences and my gifts. So The door is slightly open, and the light was on to the bathroom. So of course, it was casting this shadow across the room, right, with the light emitting and everything being dark. And so I just got up and I sat up on the bed when all of a sudden this demon decides to fucking waltz in the room, and I felt it, right? So for those of you who are psychic, who are mediums, who do interdimensional traveling, astral projecting like myself, you know what it's like. And for those of you who don't, you get the cold chills, your senses go off, you feel the presence in the room like if it's a real human. So I get this weird physical sensation that something's watching me, and that, and it just entered the room. But the weird thing is that it came from the bathroom. as, you know, and I could hear my ex, like, he was in the bathroom. I can't recall if he was peeing or he was already showering. So as I'm sitting down facing the opposite direction of the door, so I can't see what's behind me in the door, but I do see the light. And I'm kind of scared because at this point I'm like, my ex is, you know, my boyfriend's in the shower. Why do I feel like there's someone behind me? And why? And then in that moment, in that instance, my hair raised. I get very tense. My palms start sweating. And then I dare to look up and look at the light.
Oh my God.
All of a fucking sudden, a big shadow, like probably a good 7 feet, like the height of the wall, creepy, like a fucking demi-gorgon walks across the room because of the shadow of the light that was emitting from the bathroom was big. It was casting across the room. And I just see the monstrosity of this giant 7-foot, like human-looking entity just walk across the room. And I'm fucking getting the chills. Right now I'm holding my obsidian because just even recounting this story, bitches, because that was a big ass deal. Till this day, that motherfucker still tries to haunt me. I look over slowly because I knew guys, it's like a horror fucking film, a scene out of a horror film. And I'm sitting there and I look over and I see it. And this motherfucker just walks. And it's just like 3 seconds. He just walks like that. 1, 2, and it looks like he's coming over the bed, like he's heading in my direction because I could
stop.
feel him
Oh my God.
And then I freeze. I freeze and I look and I like lock. And then once I realize that because at the time I don't realize, but now I know, right? So at the time I was basically in the inner dimension. I was like, for those of you Stranger Things fanatics out there, the upside down, right? The other alternative dimension where low vibrational creatures live. I was in between the worlds, right? Because I just had sexual experience, all these other experiences that elevate our consciousness will make you interdimension travel. So at the time, you know, I was like, whoa, and I saw it. And then I literally almost screamed, but I was shocked. I was frozen in fear. And then I blinked my eyes and it was gone. It was gone, just like that, instantly, completely. Poof, he was gone.
Oh my gosh.
And then I stayed still. I couldn't breathe. I was holding my breath. And then I finally let it go. And then once I realized the demon was gone, the hootie was gone, I was back in my body. I went, ah! And then I was just like, oh my God. And then I didn't scream loud enough to alert my ex. I just screamed and like internally almost like, and then I jumped off the bed. I started to have a panic attack. And this is where mystics and psychics, you already know how it goes dating a normie. You can't even be human. You can't be yourself, right? So at the time, because I wasn't empowered with my gift and I didn't really know who I was and I didn't know what I was experiencing, I could have just go, even though I did. But I knew that my ex at the time, he wouldn't understand, right? That was already a big red flag. How could I share who I was and my experiences? So I panicked and I had a panic attack, I think, and I just was so scared and I didn't know what to do. And, you know, I didn't have the tools at the time. Now I do. I fucking see the demons. I was like, be gone, bitch. I take out my obsidian blade.
Like, I'm ready.
I take out my crystals. I post. I'm like, bitch, no, puto, like, you got to go. And I just get, no, fuck, bye. Like, literally, like, now I'm a diablera. Like, I got this. I can deal with fucking demons. And there are different levels. There's different times. Just like Stranger Things explains, it's really fascinating, guys. So I would definitely say that fucking demon was like a category 3 because this motherfucker was big. So then, yeah, I literally started gaslighting myself in the moment because I knew I couldn't share with anybody because even my sisters, even my people that I knew like even friends, right? Like I was like, I can share this, but nobody understands me and nobody gets or is having these experiences. So I felt really alone, and I left it alone. I was like, maybe I am having, you know, I started to gaslight myself, and I was like, well, you know, I'm having severe mental health problems right now, so that's probably what it is. I started gaslighting myself, which most psychics do when they start their awakening process. So then that's that. I don't say anything. I don't do anything. However, it happens again. So fast forward a week, 2 weeks. This fucking demon knows I know it exists. So this is how it works. This is how it works with these fucking creatures and all supernatural creatures.
I have to, because I always, whenever I feel creeped out or whenever I feel like, which thankfully hasn't happened in a while, but whenever I feel like if something's watching me, or even if I don't like, if I'm just scared, like if I just saw a scary movie and I'm like, what if there was a ghost in here right now? I always convince myself that like, okay, if I just like pretend like I don't know that they exist, then they'll leave me alone, or that like I don't know that they're there, then they'll leave me alone because they'll think like, oh well, he doesn't know that we're here, so we're not gonna mess with him. So like, is that, we can talk about that later, but like we'll put a pin in that. But I just like had that thought right now because I think that very often.
Yes. So. Okay, wait. So yeah, I'll continue the story and then we'll hit on that point. That's a very good point. So essentially, repeat. It happens again, and it happens in the same room, right? So again, I'll talk about how demons and creatures, supernatural entities attached to certain places and things and whatnot. So then again, we're in the room, and my ex leaves the room. And again, I don't know if we had just had sex, we were napping, something. My ex leaves, goes downstairs, because this was his home, right? We were in his house. Goes downstairs, and I'm left alone. Again, I like to be in the dark, so I'm really weird. And again, I think there was like a lamp on or the light from the restroom. When all of a sudden, I'm walking around the bed, and I see it again, casting from the shadow of the light from the bathroom or the lamp across the room. And this time, the motherfucker looks at me. It angles itself so we're facing each other. And I'm like, and at the time, like I mentioned, guys, I'm not empowered yet. I wasn't sure of who and I was like, you're not real. And I was so scared. And this time, it was even shorter because it was a glimpse. Like I was walking and I was minding my own business. I was coming around the bed. My ex had already left the room. And I turn around and boom, there it was. And I said, you're not real. And then it disappeared.
Oh
but
God.
Again, guys, I was in shock. This thing is like 7-8 foot tall, and it looks like fucking the devil himself, right? Like literally what we portrayed in horror films, this disgusting looking creature. Like it has like a little bit of horns, but more than anything, it's just big black shadow, and it's super hairy and disgusting. This thing's disgusting looking. And I just closed my eyes and I started praying, and at the time I wasn't even spiritual yet. I was like, whoever's fucking listening to me, God, Allah, Buddha, the rapper's babe, whoever the fuck.
Yeah.
And so I just like, oh my God. Then I started to get very concerned, and I'm like, holy shit. I had already had some shamanic practice in the Amazon when I was in Ecuador. So I was like, okay, maybe I can't escape my fate. I think it started to dawn on me. Things started to seep in, right? So then I had already shared with my ex that I was a mystic and that I practiced, but I wasn't very open with him about it. Like I wasn't myself, right? I wasn't like very out and about it in front of him or others really at the time, even though I went through some Texas experience in the Amazon. So one day I'm sitting with him and I tell him, I was like, hey, I kind of want to tell you something, and I don't know how to tell you. I know I've never really bring up this part of me of like me being like a mystic and all of this and having powers and seeing things, but just want to let you know that I'm seeing a dark. And I didn't really like tell him that it was a demon or anything. I was just like, I'm seeing a shadow in your room constantly at this point, right? But again, remember the energy between us had already started to shift. His toxic masculinity was starting to show, right? Months had gone by and he was starting to get comfortable. So his demon was getting comfortable, like, haha, just like most relationships, right? But with people, things, it's like you get comfortable and the demons are like, I'm ready to come out now. Yeah. So that's what was happening, right? The demon was like, are you ready to see the real version of your boyfriend? Well, here I am. And so the demon was out and about. And he kind of just like, not gaslighted me, but was just kind of like brushed it off a little, and he looked concerned. I remember his face. He looked a little scared. But he was kind of just like, oh, okay. So guys, this is where the shit gets real fucking real, and this is probably the scariest part. So, and y'all can pull out theories. I want to hear see your comments about what y'all have to say about this next part. But this is where my ex has his experience with this demon. So I think a month goes by. Time goes by. I don't really know how much. This was like 2 years ago. And this one night I didn't sleep over. I was constantly over at his place. But this one time I wasn't with him. So he was alone at his house. And then when we see each other, I think he called me in the morning. It was like urgent, or he messaged. I can't remember. But he tells me, he's like, I had this dream and it was very real. And he was very concerned, right? He was like, I had this dream. And it's like what most people, it's so funny because what psychologists call, Ayden, help me out. What is it called again? Sleep paralysis.
Yes.
Which is a demonic activity. So essentially.
Oh my God, I can't believe you just said that.
Yeah, my muggle ex has this dream where but in the dream he's also experiencing sleep paralysis. And for many of y'all motherfuckers, you already know, y'all have already had intense experience with demons and other supernatural entities when y'all have had your experiences. So apparently he's asleep and he wakes up in the middle of the night because something's choking him or on top of him, both of those combinations. And when he opens his eyes, there's this huge black shadow that looks like a man, like an animal hybrid, disgusting man. And he said it was floating. It's floating right above him. And it has him pinned, and he can't move. And mind you, my ex was an ex-military, so he had like severe ass PTSD. I think he owned a fucking gun, which was gross. And anyways, you live and you learn. But he would like always have his gun near him when he would have to sleep because of fucking, the tours he did and having severe ass trauma, which can't blame him. But he says that the fucking demon, right, the spirit starts telling him, where is the witch?
Oh my God.
And then he's like, what? And he's like, where's the witch? I want her. And that my ex was just like, what the fuck? At this point, my ex tells me I have never experienced anything like that. He had never seen, heard, experienced, and that he can't move, right? Because he's in sleep paralysis, and that the fucking shadow demon, this big ass motherfucker, starts floating around the room while it has him pinned to his bed. He can't move. And the fucking demon starts going in and around his bed, and it's looking for me, guys.
It's looking for you. Oh my God.
It told him, where's the witch? Right? As he said, it was a demonic voice. And it started looking all around the room, and that he said that it started getting angry, that it was grunting, like, oh, where is she? And that it was floating and floating, and he could just see this big motherfucking shadow ghost demon floating around the room, and it went into the bathroom in the room, it went under the bed, and he couldn't do anything, and he was so scared for his life. And that he says all he remembers is that the big fucking shadow, he called it a shadow, right? But that's how I saw it as at the time. And that the shadow just fucking soars down the fucking, out of his room, down the stairs. And then all of a sudden he just hears it yelling, and like that he could hear it turning over furniture. And then all of a sudden, all he hears is a big glass go, like something just shatters downstairs. And he wakes up, he jumps up, he grabs his gun, he runs downstairs, and there's nothing.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I hated that. This is the first time that you've told me this story.
I know. Well, bitch. Oh, hey, the demon. But I didn't even feel bad, Ayden. Bitch, that's your demon. Your demon doesn't. But Ayden, you know why most people never liked me growing up, and still to this day, bitch, I'm the number one hated ass bitch. Because I irritate demons. I ruffle demon feathers, and people don't like it.
Yeah, and so just so that we're clear, so what you're saying, or what I'm understanding, is that a lot of the time entities will attach themselves to people, and so that was your then boyfriend, that was his entity, and for whatever reason you ruffled its feathers, and so it brought it out, right? That wasn't your demon, that was his.
Exactly, Ayden.
Okay.
Exactly. So because our relationship was coming to a pivotal moment, it was becoming the capture moment where this was going to make or break us. because I had just gotten a new job that was very stressful, so I was always gone. And he had been used to me being around all the time and like controlled almost. Like he had this thing where like he could see me all day, be with me all day. But I got a full-time job at the time, and then it was really demanding and stressful. And then also I started to pick up more of like, wait, he's kind of abusive. So I started to set boundaries, right? At the time I was also learning more about boundaries. And even though we had this great relationship, he was so much fun, I was fun, and we had this really great fun relationship. But deep down, his demon wanted to control me. And the minute that him and the demon, well, more of the demon, because I don't believe that one person is bad, right? There's no such thing as black and white. Everything is gray. You weren't born into this world evil. Your soul is consciousness, it's pure consciousness. So this entity that had him with all his traumas and all his PTSD and everything he'd been through was finally at the point where, whoa. And it's definitely because of his mama issues. He had mommy issues. He had girlfriend issues. Oh, he was all kinds of fucked up. So like, this motherfucker's demon was like, oh no, she's slipping out of my hands. I no longer have a grip over her. The demon, right? Not really him.
Yeah.
I don't really hate my ex. I hate the demon is the issue. And that's most of societal problems. It's not the people. It's not actually the people, right? It's the demons that embody the people, convincing them.
Oh my God. Okay, so I was taking note of a few things that you had mentioned, and I wanted to like touch on them. Another thing that I wanted to make sure that people know, because I know that this is going to be very unfamiliar territory for some of the people listening.
A lot of people.
And I just want people to understand that when you're mentioning like Stranger Things and the Upside Down, I just wanted to like make that clear distinction that you don't think that show is like 100% real. That's just kind of like the closest description or understanding that we have to portraying those things.
Yes.
Okay. That makes more sense.
Yes. This. And it's a yes and no to also that. Yeah.
Okay.
Because there's so many things that we can't explain. I have had so many experiences now that I'm in tune with my gifts that I still have not shared with like a single soul. Because again, it's something that one will not, and it's like, oh, she's, well, at this point you're just schizophrenic or whatever the fuck. No, right? There are people out there that have gifts and talents and supernatural capabilities that, we have to almost keep it a secret because it's supposed to be fantasy. It's supposed to be Harry Potter. It's supposed to be in the movies. It's supposed to be out of our reality. But again, you have to remember that there are multi-universes. So I can never say, oh yeah, that's real, because at the same time, what we experience in this dimension, this 3D dimension, when there's 5D, there's 6D, there's so many different dimensions out there, so many planets, I can't say for sure, but what I can say from my experiences, right, like what I believe in and what I experience is my reality. And everybody has that right to believe and experience and understand what they do. Right?
Yeah. And I also imagine that it's also just kind of hard to like, that there's no language for what some of these things or these experiences are. There's no way for us to like describe them in words that we understand.
Yes, exactly. And I guess the closest thing I could describe is when people dream, right? And when people have lucid dreams, they do extraordinary things. So, and I won't get too much into it, but when you're dreaming, you're in a different reality. You're in a different state of consciousness. You travel. Your soul goes to another dimension where you can accomplish those things, whether you're 11 doing telekinesis, mind control, manipulation, floating, right, levitation, all of these things you accomplish in the dream world. And because we're right now in the 3D world, this dimension, that's a whole other topic, it can get very confusing between what's reality. And then you have mental illnesses, and it's a very touchy, hot topic. And it's very complex, but we need to start having them, right? Because the shit that I've experienced these past 2 years are unexplainable. But now that I've done research, I'm starting to realize there's more people like me. There are actually award-winning people who are doing spiritual and neuroscience and explaining the shit that I've been going through. And I'm like, I'm not crazy. There's this famous person in the world now who's actually a pioneer telling people, hey, yeah, you can levitate. Hey, yeah, you can, there's astral project. Like, do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there's so many worlds and things, and do you believe in demons or not? Do you believe that what I saw, what he saw in his, you see, and another good example is my ex, because he doesn't have the third eye consciousness awakened and activated the way I did at the time, because I had already undergone so many ceremonies and practices with a shaman. And even just that, as a child, I was born with these gifts. I already could say, predict, see things that nobody could. So for my ex to experience it, in order for him to experience, he had to be taken to the alternative universe, to the different dimension to see the demon. Because his pineal gland, his third eye, isn't activated in this dimension to experience it.
Yeah, and I think that sometimes that's like some of the best, like, I don't want to say evidence, because like I feel like someone's going to be like, that's not actually evidence, but I feel like that's some of the best maybe like anecdotal evidence, I guess I'll say, is when like a skeptic or someone that is not really like into those things or doesn't really talk about those things at all of a sudden has this really intense experience that you can tie to your own experience.
Exactly.
And one of the things that you had mentioned too that I did kind of pause you on, because it like freaked me out, because I was just thinking about it, was sleep paralysis.
Yeah.
And because I've mentioned on the show before how I had a really scary experience with one, because I get sleep paralysis often, and maybe that's something I need to talk to you about later. But there's this one experience that like really, really freaked me out. And so I just wanted to like mention that, because I've never really like, I know that some people like I haven't done my own research, I guess is what I'm trying to say, but I know that some people are like, it's just like a neurological thing, and then there's other people that are like, no, like that's the way that spirit comes through. And so like I wanted to get your perspective on that.
So again, it's like, it's not a black and white, right? Everything. My best advice I give to people, when, especially skeptics or people who don't, and I'm like, listen, like my experiences and your experience are totally different, but what I will tell you is anything is possible, and anything is real or not real depending on your belief, right? The system of belief, like the dimensions and everything we live in, like whether you have 100% conviction of sleep paralysis being completely neurological, then that's what it will be, because that's all you will allow your consciousness and spirit and your body and mind to allow.
Interesting.
Does this make sense?
Yes,
but there
it does.
are now, right now, especially with one of the really good, the neurologist I was telling you about, he's a spiritualist and a pioneer neurologist in spiritualism and multidimension traveling and overcoming. He's been able to heal people of incurable diseases, like things that like stuff like that, right? And so in his explanation is that, for example, interacting with other entities, is that your wholehearted faith and belief in something is what makes it a reality, right? And so in instances for sleep paralysis, it boggles my mind that non-believers and skeptics will experience some of the worst, scariest demonic activity I've ever heard of, and still get up and be like, that was a horrible dream. And they have a scratch on their leg. They got pulled off their bed. Their blanket was off. Their TV was thrown.
And they're like, I just roll around a lot.
Oh, yeah. I mean, of course, that was just, me doing that thing. Like, come on, right? Like, at one point, you have to get, and again, because I'm a believer, there's things, again, like I have not shared to a single soul, because, again, it's not because people are skeptical, but that's between me and spirit. And when I'm ready, I'm going to share.
Yeah.
And when I'm ready, right now, people like me, we're not safe in the world. We're targeted. 11? Yes, she makes sense. She's one of the most relatable characters I've ever seen. I'm like, yeah, of course. Gotta hide my powers. Try to act normal, because nobody gets it.
Yeah.
Right? And so, but that doesn't mean that there are not other people out there like that, right? So it's very interesting. And sleep paralysis, again, I haven't had too much experiences with it. I've only had 2 major ones. And when I did have them, I was a lot older and very much more aware. And my mom always gave me best advice, like, it's a spiritual experience. You want to shun the entity, whatever it is. So you see how, for me, even as a child, the belief ingrained in me was that it was a spiritual experience that needed to be handled spiritually. And the funny thing, this is the funny thing, is that even when you hear skeptics talking about sleep paralysis experience, 90% of them end up saying, I end up praying. Oh, what a coincidence that you decide to pray to what? God? Spirit? Your soul? Who are you praying to?
Yeah.
Why are you praying? Why is it that in moments, in capture moments, like in sleep paralysis could be a capture moment, you decide to surrender to spirit?
Yeah.
But demons aren't real. Okay.
Yeah.
And spirit isn't real. Okay. Yeah. All right.
And then the next thing that I had on here, and you just mentioned it. It's like you're in my head, of course. Is you had mentioned also something earlier about like kind of like telling it you're not real, and that reminded me of something that I heard recently was how this there's like it was a podcast I was listening to, and there was like a healer medium that was on the show, and they were talking about how like sometimes it's as simple as just like stating a command, and it can be as simple as like, you're not welcome, leave me alone, and like that's the end of the conversation.
Yeah. Yep. That literally, and especially with the demons and other spiritual entities, even if it's an ancestorial spirit, say your great grandmother comes to visit, she's not welcome, you don't want to channel her, or say you're a channeler, like I'm a channeler, but it's not one of my strongest practices. Just recently, about a year ago, my grandma channeled my body. So I was possessed by my grandma. And when I came out of the experience, I looked over and I had just finished having this intense conversation with my mom, but it wasn't me, it was my grandma. And then sure enough, I got confirmation from another psychic that because I feel safe with her spirit and she's one of my guides and one of my powerful guides, my soul allowed the surrendering and leaving my body so that she could possess me. But just like anything, if you do that, if you're not conscious, if you're not aware, you could surrender to bad spirits. Sleep paralysis is your spirit not being in your body and demons and other things trying to take over your body. That's literally what sleep paralysis is. But again, if you're a skeptic, if you have other beliefs and other viewpoints and you believe in them, that's your belief. But again, if you're asking for my opinion, sleep paralysis is you not being grounded and not doing enough safety, protection, and security while you're sleeping, so that when you do astral project, because we all do it, your body stays safe. It's basically like leaving your dog in the kennel and then leaving, making sure it's safe. You kennel the dog. You need to kennel your body with crystals, cleansing the energy, prayer, grounding, meditation. All these tools that have been used from the beginning of time to protect you, right? All religions, all spiritual practices, all these using sigils. So, yep.
Yeah, and that makes sense too, now that you're saying that, because like I said, it hasn't happened in a while, but that one experience that I was referencing that happened to me, that was like, it was the worst experience that I ever had with sleep paralysis. That was one of like the toughest points in my life. Like maybe I'll share those details later, but Alejandra, like that was when I had just come back from San Marcos, and I don't know if you remember like how
demons were rampant around you at that time.
Yeah, like that was such a low point in my life. So it makes sense looking back at that now that like, of course I was at that really low point and I had that really intense experience with spirits literally trying to like come and do like who knows what to like my soul or my body or whatever. And
then they whisper those ugly, horrific thoughts that people are like, oh, that's sometimes it's not your own mind. It's not. When you hear and see those things, you're like, that is not you. And that's where true power lies, is when you can separate your mind, even your thoughts from a demonic entity. Like all of a sudden you think this ugly thing about something, or you want to enact in something, that's not you. Or you want to engage in this behavior that might jeopardize you or your life or put you in danger, in harm's way, that's not you. Because your soul always protects you. Your spirit guides always protect you. They never want any harm for you. But the minute that you're surrendering or you allow demons and bad spiritual entities to invade or come near, and you're around low vibrational people like my ex and other people that we've lost along the way in our lives, that's where they they take advantage of you. And that's where these capture moments happen, because the universe is like, you see, you got really close to these demons. Now it's time to clean. And some people don't make it. Some people end up homeless. Some people are addicts. Some people just like, you know, like, and it's a complex issue, right? We can't just be like, oh my God, all these addicts and all these horrible things happening to people. It's because of demons. Well, guess what? It's a spiritual warfare every day.
That also kind of like addressed the last point that I had in mind, which was about like, I feel like there's a difference between being open and being vulnerable. And when it comes to this, and my last point to that, which you touched on it perfectly, was how like certain mental states can leave you vulnerable as opposed to open, you know, because sometimes like you want to open yourself to higher vibrations, and how like, you know, you go into it willingly and like you like with intention, versus what's the word that I want to use? How, I guess maybe like, how do I say it? Maybe like when you're in a state of like poor mental health, like I mentioned earlier, how that can leave you not open because there's that willingness and that intention is not there, but it can leave you vulnerable and kind of in like a dangerous spot.
It does, yes. It leaves you in a very dangerous zone to be susceptible to bad relationships, engaging in bad, toxic, sabotaging behaviors that could lead to your death even. That could lead you to committing all these acts of crime, and because you're possessed, right? So now I'm going to say the word possessions. Think back to a time, Ayden, where horrible things were constantly happening in your life. And now you look back and be like, who was that? Guess what? It actually wasn't you.
That is so wild. And I think also maybe that's something that I would like listeners to think a little bit more deeply about, is that possession doesn't always look like The Exorcist. You know, it doesn't always look like that, and it doesn't always manifest that way. Yeah, it can be where it's like you do these things that are like detrimental to yourself, and it's especially when you think afterwards, why did I do that? Like, what was I thinking? It's like, maybe that wasn't you. Like, maybe you weren't in complete control at that time.
It wasn't you. Exactly. It wasn't you. Literally, breakthroughs that I've been having. I'm trying to educate people. But like the knowledge I have and share, and like the things that I get from spirits, it's scary, Ayden, because again, other people's demons will want to target. What did my ex demon do? It ran me out of the house. Because guess what? Once those activities started happening, my ex started becoming more abusive, started mistreating me, started becoming an abusive boyfriend. Then all of a sudden we broke up. But what did that demon say in the dream? I want the witch out. Where is she?
Yeah.
It made sure of it. Right? And again, demons are from my experience and my knowledge and my research, I feel, this is from Alejandra, Dr. Alejandra, spiritualist, is that bad entities are 50% your trauma, 50% from the different dimensions. The only reason they can exist is because they cling on to moments of trauma. The minute that traumatic incident happens to you, whether it's when you got accidentally pregnant from a horrible person, you know, or like all these horrible, tragic, terrific incidents that happen, in those moments where you're so vulnerable and all this toxic, negative, dark energy channels you through sex, through substances, through all these things, they enter and then possess you. And then they stay because it's trauma, right? But that's from a spiritual perspective, because you can talk to a neurologist or a psychologist or whatever to be like, oh, it's just, or energy, or it's just trauma, release it, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Right? But from the way I experience these things, right, me and a sister and other friends that I know, a lot of people around me are starting to awaken. And I'm like, I'm not crazy. You all see this. It's not me. The reality we think we live in, especially spiritually, when it comes to different deities, Greek mythology, Harry Potter, Stranger Things, I'm like, oh my God, why do these things even exist in the first place? As a TV show, as a book series, where did people access this information from?
What are then ways that we can protect ourselves from these things? Because I think now that people might understand that, possession and demons don't always manifest the way that we've been told. It's not always like this Hollywood archetype or experience. Like, it can happen in different ways in our lives. How can we, what chance can we give ourselves to protect ourselves and protect each other?
Okay, so my main advice, especially with everything I've been through my whole life, but particularly these past 2-3 years with so much trauma, that were so many capture moments is that in moments of trauma, when you're the vulnerable and when they are going to take advantage of you, that's when they do. The moment that when because you're so fractured, right? It fragments. So that incident, that that night that one thing happened, you could feel it, you could recall it, whether it was sexual assault, whether, right, trigger warning, I'm sorry guys, or all these horrific things that have happened to you, or traumas, physical traumas, mental, emotional traumas. In those moments is where you have to pivot your energy and say, I understand this has happened, but I will not let low vibrational entities take advantage of me. Where are your crystals? What crystals are calling out to you? Which ones should you use for protection? Do the research. Cleanse the energy in your room. Align your chakras. Meditate. Get out there. Do walking meditations. Talk to yourself. If you don't believe in spirit guides, you don't believe in the universe and the cosmos and animal guides, doesn't matter. You know what you should believe in if you don't believe in those things? Yourself. So if you don't believe in any of those things, when horrible things like this happen, you have to reconnect, because what happens is you fragment, you shatter. And what's happening right now in society and everywhere is that we're all fragmented. Politics, society, everything going on right now is purgatory. It's like purgatory everywhere with all the things going on, because everyone is shattered everywhere. And nobody's healing. Nobody's going back to those times, because in incidents in the past where those things happen, we need to do shamanic practices where we do soul retrieval. We go back in time, but we have to go to the underworld to do that. And that's the practice that I've been learning. How to go back to the underworld, retrieve a part of your soul, bring it back and heal it. And in incidents, if we don't do that, your soul remains there. And I'm like, bitch, I've done so many ceremonies where I'm like, okay, Hades, I need my friends. Okay, this was 2008. Okay, I need it back. That was great. That was cute, but give me back my friend's soul when this happened. Okay, cute. Thank you, Hades. Bye.
Bye. You can leave now. You're excused.
Yeah, but you need to be protected. You need to know who your spirit guides are. How do they work for you? How do they show up for you? How does your higher self show up for you? I know how my bitch looks like. My higher self is a badass bitch. And I still hide her because I'm scared of her. Like I said, she's a hybrid of like Olivia Pope, Selena, like all these bad, incredible, intelligent people all in one. But I'm working on her because she's intimidating. She scares people. And the minute she's out and about in the world full force, they're going to target me, right? But I cannot be afraid anymore, right? You can't be afraid anymore. So incidents of trauma, right? We need to start taking back our power. And when trauma happens, seek care. Talk to a shaman. Get a psychic. Talk to a medium. Get your soul back. Make sure you're healing. Align your chakras. Everything is energy. Demons cannot exist unless we allow them to. So, like most things we're not being educated on, like spiritualism, energy, demons, spirits, we need to understand that in moments of trauma, we need a healer. Just the way those traumatic incidents happen, you need to be rushed to an ER. One day I'm going to have one. You can be rushed to Alejandra's ER of spiritual care, because the minute that traumatic incident happens, you need soul surgery. And that's what I am. I'm a soul surgeon. You need soul surgery. Your soul needs to be repaired because you just went through one of the worst traumatic events, and now things are going to take advantage of you. That's what we call, right, in this 3D dimension. We call them PTSD. We call them schizophrenia. We call them all these other things. But we don't call it what it really is fragmentation of your soul. And we need your soul back. And you need a soul surgeon to do that. Just like the way you need your fucking fingers to be pieced back together if they got chopped up or chopped off, you need a soul surgeon.
Mm-hmm.
Go seek a soul surgeon. Go stop, destigmatize spiritual workers, healers, shamans. Go see them. And go see the therapists, because they're the mental ones. They're the mental healers. We're the soul healers. Go see an actual physician if you need your body to be healed, right? That's the biggest advice I can give you guys.
That was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I really appreciate it.
Yes, you guys are welcome. I'm trying to break out of my little shell.
Yes, and like you said, destigmatize it. I think spiritual work and like spiritual healing is something that's still destigmatized, although it is very prominent in our culture, like in the Latinx culture. Like that's something that I've said before, like when I found out that I had HIV, before my mom took me to the hospital, we went to the curandera that lived on the other side of the alley. You know, it's something that's very prominent in our culture, but a lot of people still have trouble talking openly about. And so I think I hope that this gives a lot of people the permission and like the validation to like go and seek that kind of help. And I'm so happy that you mentioned like therapists and like physical doctors are just as important as spiritual health and spiritual wellness.
And that's the biggest thing right now that we having, biggest issues right now in society is that everybody's soul is so fucked up. Your soul is fragmented from all the traumas we've all experienced, right? We're holding on to the traumas of colonialism, of patriarchy, of genocide, femicide, all these horrific acts of crime and violence. Our demons rampant, taking advantage of us, and nobody's healing from it. And we can't get anywhere in society, not even with ourselves at a personal level, because those demons from the past are still with us and they're being passed down. And we need to stop it and we need to heal it.
Learn how to heal.
Demons cannot exist if we are whole.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, people can find you where?
On Instagram and Facebook at La Bruja Feminista. I'm currently going under maintenance and doing a lot of self-care. So probably within the next few months, I'll probably have my page. But I do get a lot of, if you do need bookings or readings, just DM me, email me. My email is in Facebook and Instagram for now, because the bitch is trying to still get her life together. I'm not perfect. So you already know.
None of us are. And again, I will be sharing your information on my Instagram at Susto Podcast, so make sure you follow that. That way you can get linked to Alejandra's social media pages. And if you have any stories like this or that cover anything that we've talked about in the show before, always, as always, please send an email to me at sustopodcast@gmail.com. If you want me to forward something to Alejandra, maybe I can have her back as a repeat guest, which I think would be amazing, because we talked about this before. Like, there is so much that I can talk about with you, because like you mentioned earlier, you didn't mention it directly, but I want people to understand like the amount of training that you've gone through to do this work. You've gone to Ecuador. You like disappeared into the jungle for like 3 months. And I remember being like, what is she doing? Oh my God. But you went out there and you trained, and like all you do is like you study and you work so hard for this. And so again, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your time and for sharing your advice with us. And I want people to understand that, you know, like you're the real deal, and like you gave us some complimentary services right now. So again, if people want to seek out your help, they can do that by following the social medias and looking for you on there. So one last time, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it so much.
Yes, thank you for having me. So excited. Yes, guys. And I will have more projects and things coming up as well. Again, I'm just trying to also still heal and put my fragmented soul back together with everything that's happened. So, you know how it is. Take care.
You know. All right. Thanks, Alejandra. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Well. I hope you all what did you all think? Tell me what you thought, but don't tell me right now. Tell me in a 5-star review or in an email or on the Instagram at sustopodcast, sustopodcast@gmail.com. I was in there really quick. You didn't even notice. I just slipped that in there. So yeah, y'all, again, from the bottom of my heart, I love Alejandra so much. And I'm so grateful that she shared her time with us and that she shared her gifts with us. And again, I said it maybe 100 times in the recording, maybe I edited it out, but I will be tagging Alejandra in the Susto Instagram. I'm not going to say it again because you know exactly where to find that, and I don't want to beat you over the heads with it, but yes, you can find her information on my Instagram and follow her social medias and check out her website and book your local witch, right? Before I end today's episode and before I leave, just want to make a really quick announcement. Susto is going to be going through a little change. I'm going to be changing hosts. I will be publishing Susto independently after this episode. So bear with me. I am going to be taking on a technical learning curve, and I think I have it planned out all correctly, but in case I don't and something happens and there's a weird skip, this is why I want you all to follow the Instagram. I'm not doing it just for the follows, just for the numbers, because that is something that like I completely understand and I have 100% control over, and I cannot mess up Instagram, but there's a possibility that I can mess up the host website and the RSS feed and the type of plan that I have for it. Like I've mentioned before on the show, there's some work that goes into hosting a podcast. You don't just press record and then upload it wherever the hell you want to. There's a little bit of some technical learning that you have to do. So I'm telling you now, just so that by the time the next episode is supposed to come out, if something goes wrong or I mess up in a big way, then you will know what is happening. You can follow for any updates on there. If nothing bad happens and I'm able to pull this off flawlessly, well, then we won't have to worry about it, but you should still follow the Instagram either way. Thank you. So yeah, thank you all so much. And I am excited for this little change that's going to happen. And I feel like there's going to be a lot of new things happening with the show too. So we'll see. I don't know. It's just kind of in my bones. Maybe it's all going to stay the same and nothing new besides the host is going to change, but we will see. It's 2019. Who knows what I'll do, huh? Who knows? Anyway, love y'all so much. Stay ooky, stay spooky, and make sure to take care of yourselves, all right? Cleanse yourself with some sage or a crystal today, and I'll talk to you later. Bye. This is a Net Thought Podcast.